Hey everyone, welcome to Co-Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Boston. We have an amazing show today. This is a first for Co-Medicine because we have not one, but two guests. We have a veterinarian, Dr. Eugene Gorodetsky, who is a mobile endoscopist, has also been an ER doctor, and his son, who's a good friend and a fellow performer, Ben Gorodetsky, who is a storyteller, a creative, a producer, an improviser, a documentary filmmaker. He's just amazing. I am so lucky that I met him. Then I found out his dad was a vet, which was so cool. His dad and I actually went to vet school at the same time at the University of Saskatchewan. And they, together with all their skills, have developed a reality show that's going to be out January 26th. You guys got to check it out. You get to watch Eugene pull things out of dogs' stomachs. I mean, come on. Who does not want to see that? Everyone. And you get to see Ben and his dad and their crazy dynamics. So let's get into it and enjoy this episode of Co-Medicine. Very happy to have you both here. This is actually a first for Co-Medicine because usually we have one guest who is in healthcare and a comedian. But today we have two guests who kind of make up the essence of Co-Medicine. So Eugene, I'm going to start with you because I always like to start with everyone's origin story, and Ben doesn't have one without you. So if you can just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, whatever that means to you as an origin story, you coming to Canada and becoming a veterinarian, and then kind of eventually your career as an endoscopist.
All right. How much time have we got? So I immigrated to Canada in 1990, and a couple of years later, I entered pre-veterinary medicine program, pre-vet program in the University of Alberta in Edmonton. And after that, I got accepted into University of Saskatchewan School of Veterinary Medicine, Western College. And I graduated that in 99 and promptly moved to Vancouver, where I've been ever since. And I started my career in general medicine, did not last very long, switched to emergency medicine and spent quite a few years there. And while in Emerge, I found that we had a need for someone to remove foreign bodies, because foreign bodies are certainly a large part of veterinary emergency room, something that needs to be addressed quite frequently. And I started playing with scopes. I somehow can't even remember how, but I got my hands on a couple of scopes. I started playing with them. I liked it. I went and did continuing ed for endoscopy, which is not a lot, but better than nothing. And I started playing more, and then I started doing procedures at Vancouver Emerge. And then I started doing more, and people started asking me to come to their practice. And last quite a few years, I've been doing endoscopy exclusively. I have been driving and flying all over the province and performing endoscopic procedures on various patients ranging from 100 grams to a couple hundred kilograms.
Wow. And you said, we were talking a little bit before, you'd say about half of it is kind of scheduled procedures, which I guess wouldn't be a foreign body. It'd be scoping for maybe a stomach tumor or biopsying, and then half of it is foreign bodies?
About that. More like 60% is chronic conditions that are usually are scheduled in advance, and about 40% are cherry on the cake.
Okay.
Foreign bodies.
All right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you love it. What do you love about it?
Which part?
All of it. I don't know. I think I can tell you what I think you love about it, but I want to hear from you. I mean, you're your own boss. I think that's probably pretty great.
It is pretty good. I certainly I do my own schedule, although I have no idea what my schedule will look like. I have no way of predicting whether that day I will have to fly somewhere or not, or drive. After we're done with the podcast, I'm going to drive about 100 kilometers east and try to fish out some kind of plastic foreign bodies from a certain dog. And my schedule, my life is very challenging to predict. However, my wife is capable to put up with it, which I do appreciate greatly. And I still enjoy it, and I still enjoy the unpredictability and spontaneity of it.
All right. I was thinking it might be great as a veterinarian to not be confined to a hospital environment sometimes and just go in, do your thing, and then get out. I don't know. That seems pretty great.
Most parts, yes.
Okay.
I enjoy most places that I go to. Not all of them, but most of them I do enjoy. I have a relationship with hundreds of people across the province. Some of them I see more frequently, some of them I see periodically. But it's also interesting to see how people move. I know someone from Chilliwack, and next time I see them, they're in Port Alberni on the island. And, just trying to connect the dots and see who is moving where and who is working where. And yeah, it's a small incestuous community, and it's interesting to see the dynamics of it.
Now, you came to Canada in 1990 from what was the USSR, now Ukraine, and you brought with you a pregnant dog, and your wife was pregnant. Is this correct?
Well, you can see the proof sitting right there.
The swarthy, bearded proof in the pudding.
The baby Ben. Okay. So Ben was born, you're born in Edmonton. That's right?
That's right.
Okay. Very interesting because, Eugene, you and I were at vet school at the same time. I'm a 96 grad from Saskatchewan. So I think that's really cool. Okay, Ben, your dad was an engineer and a veterinarian, and then you are a creative is what I don't know how you, even if you do define yourself, but that's one word I would use is a creative, an actor, a performer, a producer, a storyteller, a comedian.
Yeah, I think storyteller is maybe the easiest and most vague way of saying what I do. I tell stories in theater and in film and in TV and in dance and in kind of community art practice in different ways. But yes, stories is my main kit and caboodle.
Okay. And you went to University of Alberta, is this right?
That's right. Then it was Brooklyn College, CUNY.
You have an MFA and a BFA. So I'm really just curious about, obviously, like growing up, your dad's in a very kind of a vocation, right? Engineer, veterinarian. This is kind of how I grew up, even though my parents are artists. And then you were like, I'm going to be an artist. What was your origin of being attracted to the arts and pursuing a career in the arts?
Well, it was 100% encouraged and supported, and the seed was planted and watered by Eugene and Regina, by my parents, who took us to see tons of theater and music. And Eugene, in his spare time from flying around and fishing out plastic out of guts and butts, also organizes folk music festivals. And a love and a frequent visceral contact with the arts was ever present in our house, just not as a career necessarily, but it was encouraged and habituated in us from a very young age. But then the other story is that because they came from the Soviet Union and had this sort of traumatic sort of cultural tsunami experience of showing up in a new place, in a different language, and a different everything, preserving the language that we spoke at home and some of the history, culturally speaking, was really important. So they put us in a theater, a youth theater studio that was for Russian language immigrant communities, folks from Russia and from Ukraine and from Georgia and from basically the USSR diaspora, all gathered together in this little theater studio for kids in Vancouver. And I think the initial impetus was that's a way to keep the language alive and make sure that he doesn't turn into one of not a billion, but many examples of kids who lose their history and kind of have no thread tethering them to their ancestors. So they put me in that. It was he'll learn the language. He won't just speak our version of sort of suspended in amber 1980s Soviet slang, but he'll talk to kids his age and that'll be cool. And then the slippery slope of getting addicted to that feeling of attention in that specific way led me to Edmonton and to New York and to Kitchener now, and a series of different pleas for attention through comedy and through art.
Oh, I don't think it's that simple, but you could say I think you're being humble because I've seen you perform and you've taught me improv and I know you're pretty great. So maybe there's a little bit of attention, but it's also the storytelling thread. So I think that's really beautiful. But at any time, Eugene, did you think, no, Ben, I want him to be a teacher, lawyer, veterinarian, doctor? Or were you happy with him just following what he felt like he wanted to do?
Honestly, I never really had any preconceived notions about my kids as to what they should or should not be doing. I did not figure out what I wanted to do until I was, very adult, in my mid-20s. And I never tried to steer them, not consciously anyway, into any direction. So whatever they pleased to do, I was happy to support them in that.
I think that's really beautiful. Okay, Eugene, you said you take, I just want to ask you this because I know through your work as an endoscopist, you are taking a lot of foreign bodies out of, it's mostly dogs, I would guess. Maybe it's other stuff too, but it seems like it's dogs that are the ones who get into trouble and eat stuff. And you have a Facebook page where you post your videos and what things you've taken out of dogs or animal stomachs. So can you tell us some of the crazy things that you have removed from either dogs or other species' stomachs?
At one point of time, I was intimately familiar with a certain grouse, pet grouse, that was into Lego. She would eat pieces of Lego, and I had to remove that. I have removed pieces of jewelry from, I believe it was an African gray. I have removed a working compass from a dog. I have removed a Mr. Potato Head tongue from a dog. I have removed not one, but a couple of toupees. Not sure how appropriate this is, but I have been educated in no way that I expected to be educated in certain, shall we say, areas that I was unfamiliar with previously to my experiences with removing certain objects from dogs, such as Diva Cup or Benoit balls.
I don't know what that is. Someone's going to have to educate
It's a Kegel.
me.
It's like a weighted egg that you put in to
I
get
did
like
not know
reps
that-
of Kegels.
Didn't know that they existed until I had to remove it. I have removed pieces of water hose from a lion. So yeah, quite a few different things.
From a lion. Was that at the zoo
Yes, it
in
was.
Vancouver? Yeah, amazing. Okay. I like the toupee one. That is, you can't make that up. That's funny.
Well, when I had my first one, I thought that's as good as it gets, that the pinnacle
Yeah.
of my career, and then I had another one.
They must
Okay.
smell really potent, like the oils on the scalp are unlike oils anywhere else on the rest of the body, like the intoxicating
trust me.
fragrance of a...
After it spends a few days in the stomach, the oils from the scalp are long gone.
Yeah. There's also I'm sure you've done this, like the underwear. That's kind of a classic foreign
Yeah,
body.
up to 5 pieces in a single stomach, yeah.
Oh, okay. And then the twist is the underwear that doesn't belong to the lady of the house, I'll just say.
Well, apparently
Have you had
there is plenty of underwear in the bushes. Any bush
that's
that
what
you
they
check?
all say,
yes.
Eugene.
Yes.
Blame it on the bush.
Oh, it's that underwear? That sexy underwear, all that bush underwear. Okay, so we have both of our origin stories. We have Ben, the artist, the creative, the storyteller. We have Eugene, who's got stuff going on social media, like millions of views. Is that right?
Occasionally, yeah.
People wanting to see your toupees and your whatever. Well, I thought you were going to say sex toys when you said you were getting educated, but has that ever happened?
No, regrettably not.
Oh, okay. That would get a lot of views, I think.
But sort of like creative interpretation of sex toys, all the bully sticks, all the dried bull penises that get stuck like
They are
on the
very
regular.
phallic. Yeah,
that was one of the most, that was like 20 million, 40 million, some insane number of views for that.
Oh.
A little like Frenchie that had it was like a bull penis that was longer than its entire body.
Those are disgusting. Like those are that stuff. Like they smell disgusting. They look. They are disgusting. It's part of a bull's penis. Like
Well,
why?
Sarah, have you ever
Yeah.
been a Labrador or a French Bulldog?
They love it?
Well,
I guess
apparently,
so.
yes.
So the creative mind of Ben is watching. And then Ben, what happened? Tell us what happened.
Well, there's like a stepping stone until before we get to the island, which is that like Eugene has for decades has been like writing a newsletter. It used to be faxed up until like shockingly recently, but like a newsletter that like is basically greatest hits of like all the insane shit that he's pulled out that month or that quarter or whatever it is. And I've been editing those newsletters for decades also. It's very mutual. He used to edit my essays growing up, and then I started editing his newsletter update things. So those go out on the regular. So like, even though I haven't lived in the same city as my dad for a really long time, I feel like I'm constantly steeped in his professional, hilarious, disgusting world because I'm reading it and like adding commas and periods and punctuation and stuff. Plus, this is a while ago, but you used to write like articles or columns for the Russian language newspaper in town.
Okay.
You've been on a handful of like news type, like the idea of like telling the story of this disgusting stuff is older than the Facebook page. And I think comes from a place of like wanting to share how delightful and mind-boggling it is, like the amount of stuff that animals eat and that you extract. So that's all kind of in the ether. And then parallel to that, I'm keenly interested in documentary filmmaking, and especially like the pandemic kind of exploded everyone's brains in different ways. But one of the ways it exploded mine was that I couldn't like do shows and you weren't allowed to be with people. And I also moved to a brand new city, didn't know anyone. So I was like, okay, I can only make video work. I'm not doing live comedy anymore. I'm not doing live theater anymore. Let's make videos for the foreseeable future. And one of the videos I wanted to make was the story of these foreign bodies, the story of Eugene, the like traveling emergency vet who like blitzes hundreds of kilometers every single day on road and on plane and across sea to do these procedures. So the idea was born to make that documentary, and through a long collaborative and intense and wonderful process, that idea is now going to be a TV show on CTV in January.
Amazing. And it's called, what is it called?
It's called My Pet Ate What?
Okay, well, we'll definitely, in the show notes, we'll make sure people know how to find that. So asking for a friend, but what can you explain, either or both of you explain the process of creating a reality show that's veterinary based? How do you do it? How do you pitch it? How does it work? What's happening behind the scenes? I have so many questions, but you can answer any or all of those questions.
I'm going to punt it to you. I'd love to hear from your point of view. What is it to make a show? Like, you took a number of meetings in those early days over the years it took to go from idea to filming. From your point of view, Dad, what was it to make a show?
Well, the biggest step was to acquiesce to the idea of making a show, which I
That's
did
you.
rather reluctantly. And from there on, I guess there was no way back. Of course, it was my lovely wife who said, of course you will do it since your son is asking for it. And all I could say was, of course, dear. And that's exactly what I said, and it took off from there. No turning back. And the rest is up to you.
Okay, but
so
Eugene...
in
sorry,
Eugene's world, pre-production is a wife saying,
That's it.
and that's how pitching works.
It's like you didn't want it, you didn't ask for it, you were reluctant, and then your wife said, yeah, you're totally doing that, and then it happened. Okay, so it's easy is what you're saying, Eugene. You don't even have to want it.
That part was pretty easy, yes. The rest of it, not so much.
Okay, Ben.
From my point of view, there's like two kind of versions of trying to show what it could be, like making a maquette, making a model, making an example of the show. One is like a document, a text document, and words are great. I love words, a hell of a way to communicate, but it only goes so far in trying to communicate in a visual medium and in like a tonal, because the tone of the thing too was like, it's funny. We have a weird dynamic, my dad and I. He's like bone dry and I'm this like animated ding dong. And that's the like, how do you communicate that on paper? So I wrote out a treatment, a doc treatment, and like sample episodes and character backgrounds of like, who am I? Who is he? What is it? Why is it? Who are the like owners? Basically, like, imagine what the shape of this show is. But then the way more effective and way more consumable version of that, but the much more labor intensive version of that is making a sizzle reel, like making a short video that does that. And so that sizzle was made, I shot it over the course of a week. I flew out to Vancouver in summer of 2022. And for a week, followed Eugene around, like rode in the car, trailed him into every single clinic, saw this like 60% scheduled stuff, 40% total bonkers, unscheduled emergency stuff, saw the volume of it all, and then tried to pare that down into, eventually it was 3 procedures that week. In that sizzle, it was like, we saw a cat that had eaten like string that had been wrapped around meat, a parrot with suspected fungal plaque or something in its lungs that was getting scooped, and then a dog that had eaten a whole tennis ball, ingested it. And of those 3, I got to also talk to one of the owners, the owner of the dog, and get her, like the heart of the story of like how scary and horrible it can be to see your pet suddenly lose their energy and lose their joie de vivre, and then how the impact basically of my dad's work. So we made all that, cut all that, and then started showing that to production companies to see who might be interested in developing this, like making it. And we did that for a while until we found our amazing partners, Tyson Media, who were like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And they had seen Eugene, because they already make a vet show in Vancouver, and he had come in as an endoscopist. So they had seen him on camera. They knew that like delicious dry flavor of his jokes. And we're like, okay, this is fabulous. Let's do this. And then from there, they took it out to broadcasters. And then eventually CTV said, oh yeah, let's do this. My pet ate what is the question we should all be asking.
Well, I can't wait to see how, I know it's going to be amazing, but it's kind of got a little bit of a, I mean this in the best possible way, but it's got a bit of the pimple popper vibe. Like if like people are just like, they're just going to be like, what, like, I have to see what he pulls, like, what is it? You know, it's just that curiosity of, and then of course, animals. Like, I think it's amazing. Everyone I told about the show is like, I have to see it. What state, like, how do I watch it? It's going to be amazing. So the
microcosm of that, like, magnetic can't look away thing is that, like, whenever Eugene is in a clinic, all of the rest of the staff, like the people working the front, everyone is doing other stuff, just like circles around and is like, let's see that underwear. Come on out. There's this like, can't look away. It's really magnetic and disgusting. Like so smelly, so nasty, so disgusting.
We love
so
that.
satisfying.
The vets love that. Yeah. It's like C-sections, scopings. Those are the things that like everyone's got to, and there's a TV. You can watch it. Everyone can watch it. Everyone can see. So that's the benefit. My role in that whole situation is like waiting in case the scoping doesn't work. I just want to give a quick shout out to our season 5 sponsor, ScribeNote. ScribeNote is the first AI scribe in veterinary medicine, and it's amazing. If you are not using an AI scribe, you guys, you got to get on it. Check out ScribeNote. ScribeNote was founded in March 2023. It's a pretty amazing story. Katie is a veterinarian. Her brother Ryan, who's an engineer, was following her around at work, and he recognized, hey, you vets, you're so inefficient. You're doing everything twice, sometimes 3 times. Let me help you with that. I've used ScribeNote in the exam room. I'll just bring it into the room as an app on my phone, and I just let the clients know, and then I can talk to it and basically tell ScribeNote what I'm finding during my physical exam. It records it, it summarizes it, it's all there. If I have to hop to another appointment right away, it doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about remembering it all. ScribeNote's got me covered. It's also been fantastic for me for when I'm calling a client and I need to record that conversation, because you know we got to record everything now. If I have a 20-minute conversation, after that I have another 20 minutes of typing, but now no more because of ScribeNote. So thanks, ScribeNote. Everybody check it out. I promise it'll make your life better. They have already helped with 2 million notes to date. That's millions and millions and millions of minutes that we get back. Thanks, ScribeNote. Okay, so Eugene, I like actually getting both of your perspectives. I think it's really interesting. What was the process like? Because I've talked to some veterinarians who've done some reality shows, and it depends. Like a lot of vets don't like to be on camera. A lot of vets are like, especially if it's like news media coming in, they're very suspicious. They don't like it. They don't enjoy it. They don't like the attention. I'm going to exclude myself from that group. But how did you feel about being followed around with cameras for, I think it was weeks, wasn't it, when you guys were filming?
About 4 months, yeah.
4 months. Okay. Well, what was that like for you? How did you feel about it?
I was relatively ambivalent about the whole thing. I'm not particularly camera shy. I don't care whether someone is filming me or not. It doesn't change what I do.
Okay.
Or how I do it. I did feel somewhat sorry for the clinics because some of the clinics are tiny. All the people and all the gear there, it just imposes a lot of stress on them, but everyone was good about it and they were game. And I certainly did appreciate that and do appreciate that. It certainly is quite time consuming. It added to my weekly schedule a fair bit of time with production, the post-production and interviews and all that. But on the side of good news, I did get to spend a lot of time with Ben, which we don't usually get to do a lot of. Plus, there is a little bit of vanity in me. I will not deny that. So,
just a little bit.
Just a tiny bit. Yeah.
And then Ben was like watering that, right? And letting that grow. So amazing. Okay, Ben, what's your perspective on your shooting for 4 months?
It was amazing and totally mind-bogglingly hard, vigorous and intense. I'm used to having 5 part-time jobs that I'm juggling all at the same time, like between teaching at the university and directing my shows and running various events and writing my own stuff. Like I love having a really varied schedule, whereas this was all production all day for 4 months straight. And that was hard. I had to really change some of my thinking. There's also like a lot of moving parts because Eugene doesn't have a clinic and it's mobile and it's emergent. So he gets a call and they're like, when can you get here? And he's like, I can get there in an hour. And that's his regular timeline. Now we're like trying to wedge in there 18 other processes that need to happen, which is like, we got to get in touch with the clinic to see if they're okay with a camera team coming in and filming. If yes, do the owners want to participate in the project? And if all of that goes, can the team get there before us so that they can set up cameras and audio so that when we arrive, me and my dad in the car together as like oddball, expert in ding dong, that can already be like in process. So his protocol just got totally exploded by so many other things needing to happen. And we got better at it as it went on, but it is a lot of like phoning and texting and maneuvering and driving and rushing and like communicating. It is really quite full on and quite amazing that it ever worked. And it worked lots. We got, 14 episodes worth of it working, but the emergency feeling is not one that I've ever like lived within. And the two of you, I'm sure, are like absolutely cool as cucumbers when everything is like seconds, a game of seconds, not of minutes, not of hours. But I was not used to that. And I was not used to trying to bring my storytelling impulses to that level of stakes and that level of pressure. It was really amazing to learn how to do that and learn how to thrive and like live in that.
But you're also, it's interesting you say that to me because you're also an amazing improv performer. And that is like, I've actually had conversations with emergency doctors and I'm like, that's the ultimate improv because you don't know what's happening and you just got to go with it, right? Like it's a cat, it's a dog, you don't know necessarily who you're going to work with that day. You're going to go in, the game is scope the animal, get it out. And you just have to and it may work, it might not work, you don't even know. So I want to talk a little bit about Pinch. So what was the move to decide to go to Kitchener? And then how did Pinch develop? And if you can explain to everybody what Pinch is.
Yeah. Pinch is the arts organization that I run, and we're a nonprofit that like puts on a bunch of different monthly shows and offers a bunch of classes and presents community art connection, like variety shows. Variety is kind of the mantra of the thing, but it was all started just as a way to like try and regain my marbles that I had lost fully and to meet people and to grow roots in a community that felt totally unfamiliar to me. I got to Kitchener-Waterloo as just like a temporary stopgap. In 2020, we'd been living in Brooklyn. That could not continue during the pandemic. We needed to wait it out until the pandemic was over. And my sister-in-law very generously offered for us to move into her house because we had a young kid. Our older kid was 2.5 at the time, and like playgrounds were closed, daycares were, everything was closed. It was like, we just need to be able to like be outside somewhere. So we couldn't live in an apartment in Brooklyn. We couldn't stay in a guest room with my parents in Vancouver, also in an apartment. It was like, we need a yard. And there was a yard at KW, and she very generously offered it. And she was like, well, how long could it possibly take? A month? Fast forward like a year later, it's like the pandemic is not over.
Yeah.
And where do we live? Do we live anywhere? Do we have any like grip on reality? And the way that I was like, okay, because my wife had gone to Waterloo, had some family in town, had some history in this place and wanted to, and I had no connection to it. So Pinch was the desire to cultivate connection and grow roots. So I just started putting on a monthly variety show as a way to meet anyone cool in town that I could meet. I was like, anyone can do it. Drag queens or poets or comedians or dancers or circus freaks or chefs or historians or whatever. We did it outdoors on the back deck of a yoga studio in fall 2021. Everyone wore masks. It was amazing. It was like, people, art. Oh my God, I miss this. I need this. I need this. I need this. And I've been doing it basically every month since then. And the MO remains the same, which is like, let's meet everyone cool in town. Let's create a platform for young artists to find their voice. Let's create a platform for established artists to experiment and try stuff out and work things out in a public kind of performance lab setting. And it's an opportunity for me to get that sweet, sweet attention that I so viscerally crave. And also to like do my own work every month, a couple times a month, writing stuff, showing stuff, performing stuff. It's an amazing community that I found here, and I only know how to make friends by like putting on shows. I don't really like hanging out that much, but I like putting on shows. So I started.
Yeah. I mean, I would say you created the community more than that you found it, because like you kind of were the leader of it. I've benefited from that. I loved sort of connecting with you and everyone who's kind of involved with Pinch. And I found like your shows, you will have like a chef and then a drag and then burlesque and then a stand-up comedian and someone doing a monologue, and like somehow you like bring it all together and kind of make that a show, which I think is, really speaks to your talents. It's like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. Or maybe it doesn't, I don't know, but it's very fun and very wonderful to be a part of. I know you had a chef on. You also had a tattoo artist on who, correct me if I'm wrong, tattooed you.
Oh yeah. Live tattoo.
And was it the audience that decided what your tattoo was going to be, or how did that go down?
Yeah, the performance was, I asked the audience, what do you think I should get tattooed right now live in front of you all? And they eventually, because the name of the show is Pinch, and they were thinking about pinching, and then we got onto this like butt motif, and then so the bit was like a peach with a butt, because a peach emoji is a common vernacular for a butt. So they were like, what if it was a peach with a butt? And then the tattoo artist drew it straight onto my arm. I never really saw it until it was done. And live during the show, there was like a band playing while this guy was like and doing my arm. For the video folks, you can see it right here.
That's that's massive.
Yeah.
That is a huge tattoo.
Go big or go home.
I had no idea it was that big. I thought it was like a little like boop. When people are like, oh, I just got this with my sister, we were drunk. No, that's serious. That's legit.
I was stone cold sober, and I don't have a sister. So yeah,
okay.
I have a brother.
This is what happened. This is what went down. Okay, well, that is like a true artist. Eugene, what do you think of this tattoo? Did you know about it, Eugene? I'm sure you did.
Well, I kind of lost count of Ben's tattoos.
Okay.
Not exactly my genre, not my art form, but whatever blows his hair back.
What a great dad. I love that, Eugene. Okay, I have some questions, Ben, because like you've been exposed to veterinary medicine recently, but were you a kid that grew up in the clinic? Were you one of those kids that followed your dad around and went to work? Or is this all new, like experiencing this? Or what was it like being a child of a veterinarian?
I had a few formative, I remember a take your kid to work day. So that was like, a formal day. It wasn't just like I'm waiting. Our house, like my school and my house were pretty close to each other, whereas the clinic, the first one was kind of far away, and then the subsequent one was really, really far away. So it never like made sense for me to be waiting there. And also because Eugene graduated vet school when I was 9, I was never like a toddler or whatever needing to be. Anyways, which is to say, I wasn't like ever hanging out in a vet clinic, other than a few times I would like get there because I knew his shift would be up soon and I wanted to hitch a ride home from Vancouver back into the suburbs where we lived.
Okay.
But I do remember the take your kid to work day. It like burned itself into my memory because there was an assistant or like a tech who was doing a castration. I remember the castration. I remember like the layers of scrotum that's like seared into my brain. But even before that, I remember the tech plucked the cat's nuts by hand. He was like, well, shaving is really bad. You got to pluck him. And then like made eye contact with me as he plucked a cat's testicles. So that, I remember that.
That will stick with you. Yeah.
And then, the emergency clinic, there was just like kind of less room for a wackadoo teenager to be like making jokes and stuff. But I remember I knew the code to get in the back. Like I knew how to get in and just kind of like wait. And we also we had a lot of animals that came from the clinic to live at our house. That was like a recurrent theme in my childhood. So those medically complex animals, like a consequence of the medicine that I'd had very close contact with because they lived under my bed or like on my chest.
That's what we do, isn't it? At no point it sounds like you were like, oh, I might want to be a veterinarian.
Like you say, the Dr. Pimple Popper thing is like something that appeals to me. And like my one dog had like a weird skin thing. And I was like, I think I'd like to be a dermatologist because picking at skin is very satisfying. But that was a brief desire.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just always curious about children of veterinarians because there is a lot of like multi-generational veterinarians. Kids grow up in that and then they just kind of see. That wasn't my experience. And Eugene, you already said you just wanted your kids to do whatever, but did you ever want your children to become vets, or did you want them to not become vets? Like, did you have an opinion, or are you just whatever?
Well, I certainly would have been pleased if one of them expressed a desire to be a vet, but none of them came even close to that. So,
Right.
yeah, I guess I dealt with the cards I've been dealt.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I do think being an emergency doctor and then an endoscopist would be harder. Like, I guess unless your kid worked there, because it is a harder place to hang out. Like, compared to like the primary care practice where your kid could like sweep the floor or like answer, emerge clinics are just kind of intense places. So
True that.
maybe that's why. No, I don't think I can't see Ben as a veterinarian. I do not see that as something that would happen anyway.
I also wonder though, because like Eugene, your dad, my grandpa Anatoly was an engineer, and you like tried to follow in his footsteps ish. You tried to become an engineer and then didn't. And that was like a process that I'm sure had whatever feelings and thoughts, and also immigration in the middle of it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like, I think you having lived and worked through that maybe was also a model for me. Like, I don't know, or like you knew that like trying to force that doesn't work necessarily.
It hasn't been exactly forced on me, but yeah, I certainly have made a huge favor to engineering as a profession by not becoming one. And I tried. It did work out, and I'm glad it didn't work out for both of our sakes.
And is that because
Nope.
you didn't like it? Or is that because it was like when you moved to Canada, I don't know if it's the same, like if you have the same qualifications when you come to Canada as an engineer, or was it just like you were like, you know what? Because I know you've done a lot of jobs, like as you were becoming a veterinarian, you've done a lot of different things. Or was it just like, this isn't for me?
It was just a combination of everything. New country, new language, new kid sitting right
Yeah.
there. And me and engineering, we weren't made for each other. And
Okay.
I was lucky enough to figure that out while still
Yeah.
in the process of getting my master's. So I never finished that. And
Right.
this is 30 odd years later.
Yeah.
Still happy about it. Yeah.
Still good in vet med. Yeah, I think you found the answer. I think I'm going to become a mobile endoscopist.
Well, yeah, one of those common professions, yes.
I think it sounds very fun. Ben, when you met some of these, or did both of you meet some of these clients when they were coming in, or what's normal, Eugene, for you? Do you meet with the client, or are you just in the back doing the endoscopy?
Typically, I do not meet with the clients. I leave that to the veterinarian on the case because usually, if I do end up meeting with a client, they always ask me, what about that rash on the left hind paw that is there? And they have no idea what they're talking about. But occasionally I do get to meet clients, but that's an exception rather than the rule.
Okay, I just found out why you're so happy. No, we love clients. We love them. But sometimes, like, it's, yeah. I'm going to get people mad at me for saying that. But Ben, did you get to meet clients like when you were doing the shoot? Were you like talking to them?
Yeah, almost every single one I got to meet. And because like Eugene's schedule is bananas, and he's on to the next thing, whereas myself and the production team would stick around and we'd talk with the vets and the techs and especially the owners, the clients, and get to hear, how did this happen? Like what kind of a bush was that sexy underwear in? What were the circumstances of Muffin rummaging through that bush? And then also, yeah, like get to give them an update of like how the procedure is going and finally show them the thing, like the disgusting, icky, sticky garment that it like smells and has discolored. It was pretty fun to get to show that off and say like, look, it's done. It worked. It's magic.
Yeah, that is we always have to save it, whether we take it out with a scope or we take it out with surgery. Like it's always on the cage in a bag. I always imagine the dog like somehow eating it again. But yeah, people want to see what came out of their dog.
I believe I mentioned the Mr. Potato Head's tongue that I have extracted from a 5-month-old golden, I believe. And the tongue was sitting next to the dog on the table. As soon as the dog was extubated, the first thing that the dog did was he went for the thing. He managed to get it into his mouth, and we managed to get it out of his mouth before he swallowed. Yeah, the second episode about foreign bodies was, I believe it was even before the endoscopy days. I did surgery to remove, guess what, underwear from certain stomach or small intestine, I can't remember. And it was overnight at Emerge. And the next morning, I'm, half asleep, beginning to drive towards home, and I see something flapping on my antenna, that when the antennas were still a thing. And one of the kind techs or assistant said to me, she washed the underwear and she put it on my antenna. It was flapping in the wind as I was driving.
That's excellent. That tech has a good sense of humor. I love it. I was just thinking the underwear in the bush, I think is not true, that excuse. It's like when people say that when their dog eats weed and they're like, oh, it must have been the neighbors or someone must have thrown it over the fence. Putting that excuse in the same category. Okay, I know, Eugene, you have to go soon. So I always end co-medicine with the same question, and I'll get you guys both to answer it. So I'm trying really hard to get Ken Jeong to come on to co-medicine. Not going so well, I'll be honest. But do you know who Ken Jeong is, Eugene?
No.
He is a physician who left being a physician to become an actor and a comedian. He's pretty famous. He just got a star on Hollywood. But could you please, we'll start with Eugene and then Ben, could you please invite Ken Jeong to come and be a guest on co-medicine?
Certainly. Next time I see him, I'll make sure to mention.
Okay, but he could be listening right now.
Well, if he is, Ken Jeong, would you please be so kind as to join Sarah your next podcast?
Amazing. All right, Ben, over to you. Could you please, this is just like you're speaking to Ken directly. Could you please invite him to be a guest on co-medicine?
Ken, baby, I know you're busy. I know you're a hot tamale, but you listen to me. And you listen closely. This podcast will change your goddamn life. You could finally be happy for once in your life, Ken Jeong. Don't throw away this opportunity. This could be the podcast appearance that changes everything.
That's going to do it, I'm pretty sure. Thank you. That was a great invitation. Well, Ben,
a bit aggressive, but I thought maybe I'd try coming in hot and see if that.
No, I think we have to try all tactics. From very simple Eugene to Ben's high pressure coming in hot. I love it. I don't know. One day he'll come on, I'm pretty sure. I'll keep asking. Ben and Eugene, it's so great to see you both. I feel like you're almost like the two halves of me, as a veterinarian and a performer. And I feel a lot of affinity with both of you. So thank you both for being guests on Co-Medicine. It's so great to have you. And everyone, check out My Pet Ate What? On CTV. Starting, when does it come out? What day?
It comes out on January the 26th, I believe. Let me double check those. Yeah, January 26th on CTV Wild, which is a brand new channel launching in 2025. It's like a part of the CTV family, but it's their channel, CTV Wild, Sunday nights. It'll be like 2 episodes per week, every week for 7 weeks.
Okay.
And it's really fun.
Is it a streaming? Can people stream it if they miss it?
I think it'll be on the CTV website that week. And then once they've all gone on TV, it'll be on Crave later in the spring. But to start, it'll be on the CTV channels or the CTV website.
Okay, everybody check it out. It's going to be amazing. It could be very fun to watch with your friends and put stuff on the socials about it. So I can't wait to watch it. And Ben and Eugene, thanks so much for being guests on Co-Medicine.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, our pleasure. Adios.
And that wraps up another episode of Co-Medicine. Thank you so much for listening. It is great having you here. If you have been listening to Co-Medicine from the beginning, thank you. If you're new to Co-Medicine, thank you and welcome to our Co-Medicine community. It is wonderful to have you here. I want to just give a shout out to Mark Edwards, who wrote the music for Co-Medicine. He's a comedian, an actor, a musician. He's going to be famous, you guys. And then you'll be like, is that the same Mark Edwards? And I'll be like, yeah, he's my friend, you guys. I know him. And he wrote the song. He's amazing. Also, big shout out to Dustin Bays. Thank you for editing the show and producing it. I appreciate you because I don't know how to do that stuff and I don't want to learn. Yes, it's willful ignorance, I think, at this point, but I'm so glad Dustin is here with me, helping me out with the show. And thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it, do all the things, review it. If you're a sponsor or a potential sponsor, call me. That would be great. If you don't like the show, I don't know why you're still here.